Well, this is weird.
I was able to build this system for only $1,000? Let's see how I did that.
Hello everyone, my name is AJ, and as you can tell, I'm going to be building my first PC. Well, my first ever PC build, that is. I've had some pre-builds in the past, but they've all sucked. So, I'm doing this. Now, I'm a bit nervous, as this, like I said, is going to be my first PC build I'm ever doing. The farthest I've ever done is installing Windows on a friend's PC. But that's about the extent of it. So, first things first, I'm going to show off the parts, and yeah. So first up, we got the most important part of any system, really, and that's the graphics card. Now, as you can tell from this lot, we've got some older parts, but for my purposes, this is plenty. And I do have a good upgrade path, though, because with this motherboard, I can go up to a 14900K with some minor drawbacks because it is a 600 series motherboard and not 700. But what can you do? So, graphics card. Went with an EVGA Furtherwind 3 3070 Ti. Now, I know this card gets a lot of backlash because of the only 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Well, yeah, that does kind of suck, but honestly, for what I play, it's not gonna be that bad. I know. Could have gotten a 3080 with 10 gigs of VRAM, but as you can tell by the title, the thumbnail, and the intro sequence, I had a budget for this. It was only about $1,000. Well, a little bit over. It was about $1,100 for all of this. Now that's pretty insane considering this card. 3070 Ti itself, for that price. But this specific model, with the Furtherwind 3 Ultra EVGA card, it's sought after. People pay thousands of dollars even for this model or lower, which is nuts. But yeah, next up we got CPU. Went with a 12700K. Again, older CPU, but when you're constricted to a budget, there's not really much you can do. And to go alongside that, we've got the motherboard itself. Is the MSI Z690 Force Wi-Fi board. It's got like a silver black theme to it. I really like the look of. It's got DDR5 support, which as you can see, we got the RAM right here. But yeah, and you can see that the case is white. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, there's that. Then we got the RAM, like I just mentioned. Then with ADATA, I don't really know how to pronounce it. And again, going used for some of these might not have been the best idea because I ended up going with a 5200 CL38 kit. It's not that great, I know, but considering what I'm coming from, which is a i5 4570 and a GT 1030 with DDR3, yeah, this is a huge upgrade. This bad boy. Another EVGA product. It's a 1300 watt power supply, the 1300 G2. It may be a bit overkill for this system, but like I said, I wanted to get some parts that gave me an upgrade path. And with this, I won't have to upgrade it. Even if I went with a 40 series, an NVIDIA 40 series card that has the 12 volt high power cable, then maybe. But there is the adapter for it with the 3 or I think there's a 4 8-pin GPU to the 12-volt high power. So, is that. We got storage. One with a 2TB Silicon Power UD90. It's the Gen 4 drive. Only one of these, as NVMe's are kind of on the expensive side right now, which is unfortunate. But this will be plenty for what I do. I am going to be using a 2.5-inch drive from my previous system. It's another 2TB. It's a PNY. I don't remember the exact model number. I'll show it on screen. But for all my gaming purposes and whatnot, this will be plenty. Now, before we get to the cooler, I'm going to be showing off what thermal paste I'll be using with it. And that may be odd because this cooler does come with thermal paste, but not pre-applied. I didn't realize that when I bought it, so I went and bought some thermal paste. It's the KPX, Kingpin Cooling Extreme, another EVGA product. I know that was kind of the point. I did end up getting a 2-pack because it was the easy option, so I do have another one off to my right, along with all the tools I'll be using for this build. So, next up, the cooler. We've got a Thermalright Aqua Elite 240 V3. Went with the white as to match the sort of white silver theme we got going on here. Now, as you can probably tell from the fans, which I haven't really explained yet, they are RGB, but they only have the ring around it. Whereas these fans have the full fan as RGB. So that's a little inconsistent, but honestly, I think it works. So, yeah. And speaking of the fans, we got 4 120mm RGB fans. I think they're inspired by the Be Quiet cooler fans, but these came with the case. The case, I'll get to that in just a second. So, the case we got here, as you can tell, the fans are not really name brand specific. This is a Skytech Kronos case. It's got a tinted tempered glass side panel here. And then it does have, obviously, the slot for the AIO. Again, bought this used. It didn't come with the fans installed. They're just in a separate box, kind of like the accessories box, but just some random box that the guy threw in. So, we got those. Gonna have the 3 intake on the front, 1 intake on the back, and then we are going to set up the AIO fans as exhaust as the top. So let's get started with the case prep. Let's just take off this side panel here. We got the 4 thumb screws like always. Don't want to lose that. That's for sure. Take it off. Just like that. I'm gonna set that off to the side here. Alright. So, let's get these fans installed, and I'll meet you back. Already up to a great start. Fans are simple to install. However, I messed up the fan placement, so I gotta take this one back off and reroute the wire. So, yay. Alright, and that concludes the fans. As you can see, using an electric screwdriver. It's just a plain old skill one. It's even got a light. Alright, so now that the case prep is practically done, I'm thinking this looks pretty good so far. Which just leaves me to the next thing. Yep, motherboard time. Now all the standoffs and whatnot are already in here. Cables are routed. Oh, actually, there's one thing to do before we get to this. There's a RGB controller that this comes with here on the back. We gotta plug all our fans into. We'll do that real quick. Alright, now that that's all set up, now we can move on to the motherboard. Now this motherboard's looking good. Make sure to zoom in on that. Alright. So, let's get this M.2 cover off and put our drive in. You know, I never realized how actually small an NVMe drive is. It's pretty damn small. I mean, I'm used to the 3.5 and 2.5 inch drives, but this is nuts. So, let's get this on. Alright, now that seems to be in all pretty good. So, now, this bad boy. Let's get her in. Yep, now this black socket cover popped right off. I'm going to keep this. Make sure we don't lose it. So, next thing, before we install the RAM, what we need to do is get the cooler out. We're not going to install that just yet, but we do need the bracket that is going to go on the back of the board. So let's grab that. Right, it all just comes neatly in this nice little box with the Thermalright branding on it. Because, you know, of course, it's a Thermalright cooler, obviously. Alright, yep, here's the Intel stuff. Won't need the AMD stuff, the AMD bracket, because, you know, this isn't an AMD system. No, word to note, I did want to go AMD for this build, actually. For the CPU anyway, I wanted to go EVGA graphics card, and they don't do AMD, so went with NVIDIA. But AM5 is not really budget friendly, shall we say, at the moment. So Intel was the best bet, because I wanted to go DDR5 as it's becoming the new standard. So yeah, if you're following along at home, make sure to read your manual for anything you're putting together. Make sure you don't mess anything up, and that you're actually following everything. Now, as this is my first time building a system, I will be using the manual. So, yeah. Alright, that took a lot longer than it was supposed to. My desk is a mess. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this shit off, and then we can continue with the build. Alright, now that we've got a little more of a clean area, minus the power supply, which is just down here to my left, let's add the RAM in. Ooh, this looks nice. Take a quick look at this. Make sure to actually zoom in on it. It looks really nice. I'd say so. A lot of this video is just me gonna be complimenting myself in the parts I chose. Maybe a little bit narcissistic, but hey, I don't care. My system. So, let's add this RAM in. But as you can probably tell, these are not RGB. Now, was a bit of an oversight on my part, because I did want RGB RAM, but you have to pay extra for that, because shit gets expensive. There we go. This is pretty much the heart of the system. All done right here. I just gotta load it in the case, and well, then add the cooler and the graphics card, and then obviously, you know, the power supply to it. But we gotta add, before I can do any of that, we have to add the thermal paste. Alright. Went with a sort of X pattern as kind of standard, I guess. So let's just spread it. Alright, now that that's done, let's load this into the case. Alright, everything looks lined up. Now we just gotta add standoffs into it. Alright, so we got the board in now. It's looking all nice. Next thing we gotta do is just put in this, which is going to be a bit difficult because this top does not come off. So it's gonna be a bit tricky, but I think we can do it. One thing to note, if you ever are doing an AIO or a custom loop system, see this little plastic film piece? Peel it off. That way the thermal paste will actually touch the copper plate or aluminum plate, whatever it is. This happens to be copper. That way it'll actually cool. So make sure to do that. You may be wondering what I'm doing. Now, while the fans are currently set to exhaust, that is how I want them, but the cables that are on the fans would be facing outwards on the case, and I want them, you know, going to the back. So, we just gotta turn them around. That took way longer than it should have. Pain in the ass, because I had to fix the cables and all that, but that part's done. Yay. I'm not looking forward to cable management and getting all the RGB set up in this. That's gonna be a pain in the ass. But before we do that, let's get the GPU in, and then the power supply, and then we can go from there. GPU is in. Damn. Okay, so now let's hook up some of the RGB before we get the power supply in. And then we'll be ready to turn the system on and load into the BIOS. And for the worst part about building a computer, doing the front panel connectors. Good God, this sucks. It's a pain in the ass to actually get it into the right pin array, so consult your manual. Okay, so front panel connectors are in. That was a pain in the ass. I had to take out the graphics card in order to actually access the pins because I got big ass hands and I could not fit in between this graphics card and the base of the power supply shroud. So, speaking of power supply, let's get that installed. So in order to access the CPU headers on the motherboard, I had to take out the IO. Again. Well, it's all put together. Finally, that took, good God. All it's left to do is plug it in, turn it on, see if it boots. Alright, now that we've got all the cables and whatnot set up, we've got a monitor here, I've got keyboard and mouse right here, that way I can actually, use the system. Got this thing right here, it's a USB drive. It's got loaded with the updated BIOS and the Windows installation. So let's do that. First, plug this into the system and see if it turns on. If I can find the power button. Rookie mistake. So every new builder is gonna do this. Make sure to flip the switch on your power supply to on, and then you can boot up the system. This already looks really good. Oh, yep. We've got this screen, the CPU or memory changed. If you see that, just hit F1 to run the setup. And then that should take you into the BIOS. There we go. Wow, this is exciting. Finally loaded into the BIOS. Alright, so as you can see, well, you guys probably can't, but we got it loaded. Everything looking good here. Make sure our storage drive is present, 2 terabyte, and on the Endo 2 slot, yep. Fan info, memory, it is currently running at 4800. That's because we don't have XMP on. But A2 and B2, yep, that's looking all correct. But we gotta go down to M flash. That way we can actually update the BIOS. So let's run that. Then that should take us with the BIOS update. Yep, so on this screen we can see all the things that are on the flash drive, which include the OS and then the BIOS update. So you just gotta run that, and BIOS is updating. So now all we have to do is wait. Now this can take some time, so do what you need to do while you're waiting. Just make sure if you have pets that they don't step on power cord, or if it's under your desk, make sure not to hit the power switch, otherwise you'll have to do a BIOS flashback, which I do have the option for, but I'd rather not. So that's why pets are out of the way. If you're doing this at home, make sure to do that as well. Yep, and don't be surprised when it does this. All it's doing is training the memory and everything like that, so it's gonna go for a few boot cycles. Don't be alarmed when it black screens. It's gonna do that a couple times, so just be aware of that. And we're not going to talk about what's in the back panel. It is pretty much against it. I'm feeling the back of the case right now. It is like trying to bubble up. It's insane because especially the 24-pin cable for the motherboard is so big that it just tightens up at the back. So that's what's kind of causing all the issues back there. And for this purposes, I have the side panel off, that way you guys can see the system. One thing I will need to check when I get back into the BIOS after the update is check the CPU temperature. Make sure that the EAO is working correctly. None of the fans are spinning, so that's concerning. CPU overheating, yeah. Why aren't you spinning? Alright, so after some vigorous messing around with things, I finally got it working. The CPU is no longer overheating, so now we can get into the BIOS and OS version, or segment of this video. So first thing we gotta do is update the BIOS. So that's in this folder here, click on that, then enter. Are you sure you want to select it? Yes. All it's going to do is update the BIOS, and that's going to take some time, as I explained earlier. So we'll just cut ahead until the next step. Alright, as you can see, the BIOS is now updated. So now all we need to do is, well, you might think it's turning on XMP. That is not what we need to do just yet. Alright, so everything looks good. Not going to overclock it just yet. I'm probably not going to do that on camera, just because it takes a lot of time and finicking around. So now all we need to do is save changes and reboot the system, and then that will bring us into the Windows installer. Yep, as you can see, we are loading into Windows 11 is the operating system I have chosen. English, US, yep, all that fun stuff. But now we just have to wait for it to install. Now this can take quite some time, so oh no, not this section, but a section later on. But what you want to do is, well, you might be tempted to just put in your product key straight away. Don't do that just yet. Only do it once you are prompted to do so, after you've gotten all your drivers and XMP, your monitor refresh rate, stuff like that, all that set up. Only then should you put in your product key. You'll have the Windows watermark saying activate Windows for a while, but when you're doing all of this in the first couple days of building your system, you'll be fine. But the key I have is for Windows 11 Pro, because of all the extra stuff I do alongside of the content creation. This is very helpful, so I went with that. So now, yep, just gotta accept the terms and conditions, and then all you go on to do is click custom if this is your first time putting Windows on this drive, whatever drive you're doing, and then choose your drive. This is my 2 terabyte NVMe, so we're just going to click on that and hit next. And now this is the section that takes some time, so just be aware of that. Alright, and as you can see, it is just about done. So, just finishing up. Yep, restarting in 5 seconds. So what you're going to want to do at this point, once it hits the black screen, right, then you take out your USB drive. That way the Windows bootloader doesn't go onto the drive. You want it to be on your storage drive, not the USB that you use to install Windows on. Because otherwise, if you leave it in, you can only boot into your OS if you have your USB plugged in, which no one really wants. Unless you want that as like some weird safety feature, just don't. Just don't forget to take it out. There we go. We are now into our operating system. Now, again, if you're following along at home, one thing you're going to want to do is, well, choose your country, your keyboard design, stuff like that. But then when you get here, oh no, what if you don't have internet? Well, that, or the only reason they want you to connect to internet is so they can install a bunch of bloatware and have you connect to your Microsoft account. The way to avoid this is to hit Shift F10 to open command prompt. Again, type in exactly OOBE for out of box experience / bypass NRO. Then you hit enter, and then what that does is it'll bypass you having to register with your Microsoft account, so you can just do a local account. Easy peasy. As you can see, it just takes us right back to this main screen. You're going to probably think something's wrong, but nope, this is right. So you go through these again, but then, as you can see, the little button has appeared saying, I don't have internet. So you click that, then continue with limited setup. Because if you hit connect now, that'll just bring you back to that previous screen, and you'll have to go through this process again. So continue with limited setup. Then you enter the name you want to use for the device, so just use my channel name. Then password, nope, I'm not going to use one. And then I personally am going to uncheck all these boxes, because again, all this does is install a bunch of random bloatware that you don't need on your system. So uncheck all of those, hit accept, and then that will bring you into the OS. Alright, we are now in Windows. Great. Now, first thing we're going to want to do is go to Windows Update, check for updates just to see if anything is there. Alright, we don't have internet, so let's connect that.
Alright, it's now a couple days later. The system is built. Everything's looking good. I got all the OS and drivers and whatnot installed. Everything's up to date. If you guys want to know how I did it, I pretty much just followed a Jace 2 cents tutorial. I'll leave the video in the description below if you guys want to go check that out. But yeah, as you can tell, we got the 3070 Ti all lit up and whatnot. Looking good. We got the 2.5 inch from my previous system. All I'm gonna have on that drive is probably just recording stuff. But there is one thing though, I do need to fix the cables there. But other than that, yeah, it's all done and dusted. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this system. So, yeah. But hope you guys did enjoy watching me build this system. I know the camera angles were... I know there's only one real camera angle, but I just don't really have anything else I could have used as a camera to get a sort of top down. But yeah, as always, have a mellow day. Goodbye.